Jeffrey Hoffman, so good to see you here.
Thank you, sir.
We're at the grand opening of this cannabis space. And tell me a little bit about your involvement as it relates to cannabis.
To cannabis or today's event?
Today's event and cannabis.
So for cannabis, I've been getting high since Reagan, and we have been waiting for these moments here in New York City forever. So we are so excited to be here and that finally New York has figured it out and legalizing cannabis for everybody. Now at today's event, we're very involved with a nonprofit called the Cannabis Justice and Equity Initiative. My mentor in that is a gentleman named Professor Terrence Coffey. He is at the Silver School of Social Work at NYU. He was actually the first purchase here today.
Yeah.
And his thesis is that the communities most impacted never get to participate in the economic incentives and improvements that come from every industry. And so we are working on a nonprofit. We are going to work with folks from the communities most impacted to make sure that they participate in this industry. We're going to have our first cohort of 25 individuals that are going to go through our training program. And then we have memorandums of understanding with Doe, the Union Square travel agency here today. We're getting ready to do one with Housing Works. We'll be doing that with several of the dispensaries here in the city, such that they will be hiring from this training program, right? There's only going to be a few thousand licenses in the state,
right,
but there's going to be hundreds of thousands of cannabis jobs and cannabis adjacent jobs. And we must make sure that the individuals from the communities most impacted by anti-cannabis enforcement participate in that economic opportunity.
Let me ask you about the process of not-for-profits deciding to go into the cannabis space versus their donors who probably don't want to be involved in the weed business. How do you offset, or how do you plan to offset those who would normally be your donors who now don't want to be in this business? How do you make the equation
absolutely
that you will reach your market share to offset some of those donations you won't receive?
So I just want to be very careful. I do not speak for Doe Fund. We are partnered with it, but just in general. Sure. So, you know, it seems to me that you're always going to have people that are unhappy with what anybody does. I think the opportunity for nonprofits here in the state of New York to be involved in cannabis, particularly when it is so germane to their mission, when you have a nonprofit whose mission is to deal with the communities most impacted, what a better way to do that than providing opportunity for them and bringing money back to those communities. So I don't see why the donors should have a problem. My flip side to that is I think the opportunity for the Doe Fund and the opportunity for them to reach new donors and new entities that might be interested in this new space they've gotten into, I think is going to overwhelm them, anything that they may lose from being present here. So I see it more as an unbelievable opportunity for them, not a risk.
And finally, how will these individual dispensaries distinguish themselves in terms of the marketplace and reaching some sort of market share in New York City?
Sure. So it looks like the way the OCM is going to do the dispensaries, that they're actually going to be able to do all of the activities that originally were going to be separate licenses in the law. So delivery and on-site consumption, it looks like now in the guidance, and we have some folks here that might be able to tell you a bit more about that today, because they're writing the rules, they're here today, that they're going to allow them to do everything. Right, so I think that is going to be a very significant differentiator. What types of on-site facilities the places have, what type of concepts they have. What is really brilliant, I think, about this dispensary is, as we know, when you go into a dispensary, you have to show your ID. Very often there's a line. There's going to be a line here, I imagine, later today as folks line up to get ready to go into the dispensary. They've taken that idea of what is something else that we do while we're showing ID and we're waiting in line. It's when we travel, when we go to the airport, or we do these types of things. So they've made it fun rather than a horrible experience, right? And then when you go into the space, this is just their pop-up. And that would be an incredible dispensary just if it was the full dispensary. They've got several thousand more square feet here that they're going to have a full dispensary. When you have that concept in the full space, it's going to be incredible. So this is the way I think dispensaries are really going to have the opportunity to differentiate themselves. What is the experience, and how do they bring all of those pieces of the retail puzzle, the delivery, the on-site consumption, how do they do all of that within the space?
Thank you so very much for your time. You're very knowledgeable about this, and I'm so glad I got a chance to speak to you about it.
My pleasure. Thank you for having us.